Good morning. We will now begin the board meeting of the Trinity County Board of Supervisors on February 17th. We will call this meeting to order and open with the Pledge of Allegiance led by Supervisor Brownfield.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We will now have public comment. This time is for information from the public on matters not appearing on this agenda or within the consent calendar. All comments are limited to 3 minutes and must pertain to matters within the jurisdiction of this board. When addressing the board, please state your name for the record and address the board as a whole through the chair. No action or discussion will be conducted on matters not listed on the agenda. However, the chair may refer the subject matter to the appropriate department for follow-up or schedule the matter on a subsequent board agenda. Is there any public comment in the room? Seeing none, is there any public comment online?
Lit from within.
Morning, Chair Supervisors Vidette Vanderweide Lewiston. I'm coming before you today with the greater concern of the macro level of politics, which bleeds down into the micro, which is us, Trinity County. We are living in a time when governmental, financial, tech systems, and leadership of those institutions across the country are being tested. Information is surfacing, which is leading to the public trust to be reevaluated. Our systems that relied on opacity are struggling under the weight of disclosure. Whether we look nationally or locally, one truth right now is becoming clear. Transparency is no longer optional. It's absolutely essential. Here in Trinity County, many of us have come forward consistently, respectfully, asking for clear process and accountability. We've asked for transparency in the hiring process. We have asked for proper procedures to be followed and explained publicly. We've asked for educational agenda items regarding the cumulative impacts of cell tower applications that continue to inundate our planning department. We have raised staffing shortages that limit our county's ability to review these applications thoroughly and in a timely manner. These are not fringe concerns, they are governance concerns. When responses come primarily in the form of press releases rather than public dialogue, when requested agenda items do not materialize, when difficult conversations are avoided rather than scheduled, it creates the perception that concerns are being managed rather than addressed. And perception matters right now, whether you think so or not. Accountability is not to throw blame. It's about clarity. It's about showing your work. It's about demonstrating step by step how decisions are being made and how public input is being integrated into those decisions, because we don't see that. Sweeping challenges aside doesn't resolve them. It delays them, and it delays increased public frustration. What I'm asking for today is simple. Agendize that which has repeatedly been asked to be agendized. Publicly identify the ordinance authority and required findings for major land use approvals and decisions. Openly address staffing capacity and retention as the structural issue that it must be this year, and create space where differing opinions on this board can be expressed without dismissal, gaslighting, or bullying. This isn't confrontation. This is accountability from a public that's tired of seeing leaders defy public interest for their own. We're watching. Thanks for hearing me.
Further public comment online?
Dan Trujillo.
Good morning, Chair, Supervisors, staff, Dan Trujillo, Weaverville. I'd like to speak on something simple, something fundamental this morning, which is how this county makes decisions that people can recognize as their own. As you know, democracy is not just about voting, it's not just about electing representatives. It's about whether people can see how their concerns, their values, their voices are actually shaping what their government does. And that happens best through public deliberation, through open discussion. And when that process is visible, even when people might disagree and they will still say, I understand how this was decided, and I know where I stand, and I know where this board stands. That's a core part of democratic legitimacy. When it isn't visible, something breaks, and people stop seeing decisions as the outcome of shared reasoning and start seeing them as something that is done to them, not something that's done with them, not something that's done by them. This matters most when the decisions involve positions that exercise real power over budgets, staff, and policy. Those offices shape the daily life of this county. If the public can't see how the standards and expectations for those roles are being set, trust will erode, no matter how competent the people involved may be. In a county this size, legitimacy depends on more than technical or legal compliance. Legitimacy depends on whether people can actually trace how public input becomes public action. Legitimacy follows a path between public voice, public discussion, and public decisions. That's what keeps this board, this deliberative body, grounded in the people that it serves. Thank you for your service and thank you for your attention.
Further public comment online?
I have no additional raised hands.
Thank you. We will now close public comment. We will now move into reports and announcements. Reports from department heads. Do we have any department heads in the room or on Zoom?
I'm not seeing any on Zoom unmuting or raising their hand.
Okay, thank you. I would like to remind the public that oftentimes we receive our report outs from our department heads via email. Those report outs are on each individual department's website, and you can find those by going to trinitycounty.org. Do we have a report from our county administrative officer?
Couple things, Chair. The Heart met on February 5th, and there was some activity around the county maintained bridges in Weaverville the following week, so last week. And then additionally, there's been some cleanup activities over in Hayfork. All those have been community-led, with the county supporting by helping out with some solid waste disposal aspect, and Supervisor Gogan may expand upon that. And then for your awareness, the tub grinder has now officially departed the county after 3 rounds of public auction. Sorry, you might want to wait for that. After 3 rounds of public auction, it finally sold for $110,000. But it has departed. It will be well used down in the Fresno area on a rather large almond orchard. That's all I've got for you.
Thank you. Now we will go into reports from the Board of Supervisors. We'll start with Supervisor Brownfield.
Good morning. So a few things. I met with the Superior California Economic Development Commission, really interesting group of people, wonderful they are. For those that don't know what they do, they help to plan and do loans for public loans for private projects. So they're a really great asset to get projects off the ground. They do a lot of research. They do, like I said, they do loans, and they're a wonderful, wonderful entity to tap into, especially for Trinity County on all the projects that we are working on now. So I'm really encouraged, and thank you, Rick, for having me move up there. It's a good education for me on economic development, so thank you. We had our annual crab feed up in the Ruth area, and that was always fun. It's an annual event that we have. The Lions Club puts it on. And we had a great showing, and always good to see community. So I'm really happy about that. And I think that's it. Oh, no. I had a one, this is the most important thing. I had a wonderful meeting with CAO Tuthill and Director Panos and his department. Everyone was there. They sat down with me, and we worked through some really intricate plans for our problemed roads up in Xenia and Kenton Palm and in the 5th District. And I am so appreciative for the time that they spent with me, and we got to business and we got it done. And I won't forget it. This was exactly how our county needs to work. They addressed it and we moved forward from this. And so I just want a big thank you to, I have to list them. We have Andy Pence, who is the engineer there. We had Ron Hanover. We had Lisa there. We had Panos. We had Trent and and me. And we just, it was wonderful. So thank you again for that. And onward to more fun things.
That's really exciting news. I'm happy to hear that. Thank you for sharing.
You're welcome.
Supervisor Cox?
So not sure how the snow impacts it, but originally the Shasta Trinity National Forest is planning prescribed fire operations today in the area of in the North Lake. Petty John Piles near Trinity Lake, 50 acres. On February 5th, I attended the opening breakfast of the Sierra Cascade Logging Conference and Construction Exposition. It was great to see some Trinity County fourth graders. They're enjoying and learning about the logging industry. The USDA Forest Service Chief Schultz addressed the conference attendees for just under 30 minutes. On February 6th, Chair Carpenter Harris and I attended the Forest Service field tour arranged for Chief Schultz by Supervisor Berkey and District Ranger Jones. Locations included the Bowerman Field Break and the Lewiston helipad. Chair Carpenter Harris and I were each provided the opportunity to address the chief, and so that interaction was appreciated. February 9th, the fire chiefs meeting, the chiefs appreciate the coordinated work that's being done on the countywide communication system. I had no out-of-county travel. That's the end of my report.
Thank you. Supervisor Gogan?
Good morning. I have a few to report out. Week and a half ago, we had a cleanup in Hayfork. It was attended by probably 25 or 30 people. We had 6 or 8 backhaul dump trucks with us and 30 odd people. It was a great cleanup. We probably dumped, I couldn't even imagine, tons of garbage and multiple other things, white metal. So I wanted to thank, first of all, CEO Tuthill for helping us out on that, and Solid Waste for working with us in letting us dump that at the solid waste plant in Hayfork. I also have a town hall meeting tomorrow night, 6 o'clock at the Roderick Center. Should be well attended. There's a few things going on out there. And last but not least, we have a new mountain in Hayfork, Mount George. I think about a year and a half, some grandchildren came to me and asked me to have this presented to the U.S. Forest Service to put up as a memorial to their grandfather. And it came through. So in Hayfork, we have a new mountain. It's called Mount George. Don't ask me where it is, but it's, it's out there. And I got the coordinates if you need it. So that was a good thing. Only took 18 months, which maybe long, maybe short, I don't know. But that is all I have to report.
Doesn't actually seem that long for something like that.
Supervisor Litweiler?
Yes. So the Nortec, which is the employment group, the executive committee had a meeting last week. I attended virtually, so no out-of-county travel for that. But I did also go to Sacramento for the CSAC Challenge Awards dinner. CSAC is the county or statewide association of counties. The awards dinner is when innovation is recognized by various parties within the counties, and there were some really great things. I had served as a judge on that, so I'd seen a lot of the submissions, and this was really fun. And I was only able to go because the next morning was a board meeting. Because the first one they invited me, I said, well, we can't really afford to go down there just for a fun awards dinner. And then I realized the next morning was the meeting. I had to travel anyway. So we had a CSAC board meeting, and I forwarded notes from that to CAO Tuthill so that he could forward as appropriate to department heads. A lot of good information there. One of the things I'd put in there as a potential action item, came back and saw the agenda, and there it was on the agenda as the HR1 update. But I did have to say, when I left that meeting, I thought, I really don't understand how counties in general, and especially like ours that have very limited, virtually no staff to work with the board directly, could possibly keep up with all the things that are going on that affect counties without organizations like CSAC, RCRC, and so forth. And we receive policy updates across the board, some good news, some scary news. And again, I'll share the notes, and I assume that will all make it to all the supervisors. I participated in the Trinity County Chamber of Commerce Roundtable meeting. And I thought that was a really great meeting, because here was this group that we have empowered and funded to represent the county as a whole. And they brought together people from businesses, from other chambers, and we're talking about how that all of them could collaborate more effectively to amplify impact. And it was just a great interactive discussion, went probably 2.5 hours long, and kudos to them for pulling that off. NACO Internet and Telecommunications Committee met again, and this was to review interim policy resolutions. And basically this was setting the stage for the trip to NACO. So they just wanted to make sure everybody was on board with what was going to be taken to DC. Participated in the California Jobs First Sustainable Recreation and Tourism Cohort. This is a group that has been funded out of that California Jobs First thing that we've talked about for a few years, but they did get a pile of money, and they're working on a number of things, and they actually are having a full day policy and advocacy session in Sacramento in June, I think it is. So I have reached out to see if there are some other people in Trinity County that might be good to either join me or represent in place of me, because while I'm very interested in this, I don't necessarily have the depth of knowledge that others do. So I'm working with the leaders of that group to see how many people we can send, because I think we have a handful of people that could represent us very well. Joined Supervisor Cox at the Fire Chiefs Association meeting. That's always it's an interesting meeting. It's great to hear what they're working on, and as she said, there was really strong response to the actions and the funding that the board has taken. And then there is a Behavioral Health Advisory Board meeting tomorrow. That's my.
Thank you. As Supervisor Cox mentioned, I attended the tour with the U.S. Forest Service Chief. That was just a really nice and unique time to get to spend with him, and also to meet and spend time with so many of the leaders within the U.S. Forest Service on our forest. I appreciate the efforts that were put forward in that. One of the highlights of that was beyond just the opportunity for communication was to get to have a nice lunch at our helitack and heliport location there over by the lake. What an outstanding place that is. It was really quite amazing. It's beautiful. The landscape all around is tremendous, but then just that sense of camaraderie and force that you feel in the presence of very trained people was really fun to be in the midst of, and I appreciate that. The conversations were very I felt on point for the issues that faced our county. A couple of things that Supervisor Cox and I are going to be following up on are some new ways that we might be able to use the Good Neighbor Authority, and then also liquidation of small parcels of land that the U.S. Forest Service owns that are maybe right in subdivisions or within other commercial developed locations, and they're generally less than a few acres, and there's an opportunity for those to be released and put on the market, hopefully. So we're going to look into that and find out how we can maybe address some of those things. We're getting a map from the Trinity County RCD that will help us locate those parcels, and that will be something that we begin to look into and try to understand the best way to help liquidate those and put those in a place that can be utilized by private entities or families for homes, perhaps. Also, I've been spending quite a bit of time doing preparation for the upcoming National Association of Counties meeting. And I would like at this time to let all of the board members know if there are any talking points, bullet points, or areas of specific concern that you would like me to carry your voice with me. I'm happy to do that, as well as CAO Tut Hill and any of the department heads. Uh, and I will have access to my email and can print things out. If you wanted to send me a letter with specifics, I will be going into the House and the Senate and dropping off letters stating the concerns and things that we hope to move forward in the future with our representatives. So please reach out to me and let me know, and I can drop off physical documents, or I can just make sure that when I have a microphone, I am speaking on behalf of all of us and recognizing our concerns and the way we would like to encourage interaction with the federal government. So I will be leaving for NACO tomorrow, and I will be there for a week. I would like to close with a big thank you to Trinity County Roads Department, because I seen their trucks on my way here this morning. They're out doing the very best they can to keep our roads open, and also our partners in Caltrans who are out all night and up early, and trucks are going everywhere so that we have the ability to get around. And I also know that all of our power companies are on standby running 16-hour days right now. So thank you to the PUD and Pacific Gas and Electric and all of their supporting contractors, Right Tree Service, and everybody else who has to be at work in this weather when we're home with a cup of coffee. So say prayers for them if you are a praying soul. And I just ask that the Lord would watch over them and keep them and be with us in this little storm that we're experiencing. So we will now close out reports of the Board of Supervisors and move on to report from ad hocs. Do we have anything from the tourism?
Yes, can I just make one comment
You may,
about
sir.
your update? Really, it struck me when I was at the CSAC meeting, because there was a lot of talk about preparing for NACO. And I guess as you near the end of your term, you start to think about some of these things. But I said, actually, one of the regrets I have is never being able to have that experience as a supervisor representing your county at the national level. It's a unique thing. And I just want to say two things. One is, I'm glad that you are representing us. I know you do it very well, and I'm always very happy that you're there leading the charge. As tough as I can be sometimes, you're tenacious. I love it. The other thing is just so that the public understands that we, unlike most counties, we only send one person to NACO, to CSAC, to RCRC. And there would be benefits to having more of us there. We could see more people. We could attend more of the workshops, because many of the workshops are happening at the same time. And there would be tremendous value to this county if we could send more people. And I get it, why we can't. We're trying to operate on a very, very small budget. I'll give you an example. At CSAC, the place where they put everybody up for the meeting was $300 and some a night. I stayed at a $90 a night Quality Inn, 6-minute walk down the road, because. And so I just, as we hear people talk about, waste of money and people doing this, and I sit and look at this and think, here's a group of people that make about what you get to pay to flip burgers, and you spend some of your own money because you can't tip. You spend some of your own money because you can't eat in DC for the cost of what our per diem is. And then you make these kinds of concessions along the way. And I just hope that it's not whining. It's just trying to get some recognition. Anyway, thank you. I'm off my soapbox.
I have one question there. Do any of these 4 meetings have the capacity to pay for our travel and expenses, as RCRC pays for, not RCRC, NCRP pays for myself and Heidi, transportation and hotels? I don't know if they have any arrangement for that.
So yes, RCRC does.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Thank
Just
you.
for the RCRC?
Just for the delegate, just for the voting delegate. So the alternate could go, but could not be reimbursed. But the voting delegate of RCRC, yes, is covered by the entity. Mhm.
You were sick, were you sick?
Then they covered you, correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's, to my knowledge, NACO does not offer that. I will echo Supervisor Weiler's comments on that. It has been interesting for me, and a journey from learning over the time I've been on the board, the personal costs associated with going to these events, especially the DC event and the annual event. There's a personal cost that I absorb because I want to serve to the very best of my ability. And as Supervisor Lutweiler mentioned, there are many things that are just they just cost so much more in some of the big cities than what is allowed on our per diem. And you have to go to these events because they are part of the meeting. And so it's just it is a challenge. Maybe one day we'll be able to solve for that, but it is something that we take with us, and we just bear the burden of that. And that's part of what I see as my service, and it is real. So do you have any further
Yes.
information on the
Now I
tourism?
can talk about tourism funding.
Okay.
So I have a couple of things. One is I have requested information from Terry McBrayer so that we have a current view of the TOT information, because it's been probably almost a year since we requested that information. And so if we're about to relaunch our efforts, we need to do that with more updated information. She's brought on a lot of new payees, if you will, by the group that went out and helped find some of, say, the vacation rentals that had not previously contributing. So it changes the weighted votes that will take place. And it gives us a more current list. So I hope to receive that soon. And then I think I mentioned before, but we have reached a new agreement with Civitas Advisors. We have $8,000 left of the money that originally was approved by this board. And rather than using that up at $5,000 or $6,000 a month because you turned the clock on, we have changed to an hourly rate. So now we can ask something that takes 2 hours, we pay for that instead of what can you get done in a month. So we will be working with them. I have a meeting later this week to meet with them to just set the stage for more specifically what we're going to be looking for. And then I'll be reaching out to all the people on that committee to make sure that everybody's still on board to be actively involved in this last push, if you will, to see if there is interest amongst the lodging business owners to implement this program. And again, just for reference, if people are listening in and don't know what I'm talking about, this is to establish a tourism business investment district. As proposed, it would involve a 3% assessment that would be added. So there would be a 5% TOT and a 3% assessment, all collected from the guests. But the $200,000 or so that would come in through this would go directly and only to tourism development. And it would be managed and overseen by a board established by the owners of these lodging business owners. So that's what we're trying to put forward, but ultimately it comes down to, will a majority of those lodging business owners in a weighted vote say that they want to do it?
Are you concluded?
Yes.
Okay. We will now move into the consent calendar. These items include routine, non-controversial matters and will be acted upon by the board by one roll call motion. If a member of the public has any questions or comments on an item on the consent calendar, they may provide them now. A member of the board or staff may request an item be pulled and considered separately. Do we have any public comment on the consent calendar? Seeing none in the room, do we have any online?
I have no raised hands.
Seeing there's no public comment, do any of the Board of Supervisors wish to pull an item?
I will pull C1 just for comment.
Supervisor Gogan wishes to pull C1 for comment. Any further items pulled as request?
Can I just ask County Council for a clarification? So there's been times when I have wanted to make a comment about something on the consent calendar, but I didn't need to discuss it, didn't need an update, didn't need to have a separate vote on it. But when we made our motion and it was seconded, and then there is the opportunity for discussion, that's when I would make my comment about that. But of course, that meant we couldn't keep discussing. It was just to be able to make a comment. Is that an appropriate way to do this that can be done without pulling it? Or do you really, if you just want to make a comment, you should pull it?
No, both are absolutely appropriate
Okay.
methods to do it. If your comment's going to be quick and you just want to add something to it, there's no reason to pull it. If you think it's going to lead to further discussion, then you would want to pull it so that other folks could actually respond to your comments or provide additional information. But both from a legal perspective are valid.
Okay, thank you.
All right, with that information, Supervisor Gogan, do you want to continue with this pulled or just make your comments within the discussion period on the consent calendar?
Yeah, I can wait till the discussion session. That's fine. If that's the
Okay.
legal way of doing it, that's fine.
Okay, great.
I wasn't sure if that met with what you wanted to do. Okay.
Okay, with that being remedied, I will take a motion at this time.
Move to approve all items on the consent calendar as presented.
Second?
We will have discussion. Supervisor Gogan, you wanted to make a comment on C1?
Yeah, C1, authorize the chairman to sign a letter of request to the California Department of Fish and Wildlife Commission regarding a one fish salmon limit for 2026. So for all who don't know, we've been closed down the salmon fishing for 3 years, the last 3 consecutive years, due to lack of returning of salmon to the Trinity River. Last year, we had a better than average return, and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service thinks that there may be enough fish returning to the Klamath Trinity system. Although the majority of those fish are Trinity River, we definitely pull the Klamath along with us. So we have put together a letter to the Wildlife Commission, Fish and Wildlife Commission, to ask for a one fish limit for economic value and to try to get some tourism back here. And we also think it's a valuable fishery and plenty of fish in the system for at least a one fish limit. We've also reached out to the Hoopa tribe and Mike Orcott. He'll be sending a letter also. And today I'll reach out to Steve Madrone, District 5, Humboldt County, and have him prepare a letter also for the Fish and Wildlife Commission, which has a series of meetings coming up through the end of this month and the beginning of next. And I think it's very important that we have our letter in there. I think 3 or 4 years ago, we added a letter and we did get a one fish fishery, and we certainly need it for tourism. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion on any items on the consent calendar? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote.
Supervisor Gogan?
Aye.
Supervisor Lutwiler?
Aye.
Supervisor Cox?
Aye.
Supervisor Brownfield? Aye. Chairman Carpenter Harris?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. We will now move into items on county matters. These items include non-routine or controversial matters and are listed alphabetically by department. A member of the board, staff, or public may request that an item be heard out of order. Do we have any requests to hear these items out of order? Seeing none, we will now hear on item D1, Health and Human Services. Admin receive an update from Health and Human Services Agency on the potential impacts of House Resolution 1. Good morning.
Good morning,
Department
Chair,
Head Hamilton.
members of the board. Liz Hamilton, Director of Health and Human Services. Get organized real quick. Thank you, Susie. All right, so this morning we're going to talk about the House Resolution 1, HR 1, also known federally sometimes as the Big Beautiful Bill. While it's inclusive of a lot of things, what I'm going to focus on today is just the impact from a federal to state to local level on public assistance and behavioral health. Of course, as you know, our work is subject to the direction of our federal and then state partners. The federal government will set our minimum, and states then come in and they look at something like HR 1, and while this is a base, California could also look and say, what would we do in addition to these, of course, albeit depending on funding, right? And so We are still, because our budget for this year was just released in January, it's being advocated for strongly with May revise coming. Um, There's a lot that is still unknown pending June when the final budget is released for the state and how California wants to kind of be responsive to these federal changes to Medicaid, which of course in California we call Medi-Cal. So the background with HR 1, and these notes are meant to, this slide I know is part of the agenda. For those that maybe want to look at it later, there's enough content. So I won't read from these slides, but I'll try and hit on all of these to paint the picture. The president signed HR 1 July 4th of 25. There was significant, and as you probably see in the media, there's significant change to CalFresh and Medicaid or Medi-Cal here. What this really looks at is in 2012, when President Obama was in office, they had expanded Medicaid services and SNAP services at a federal level. It was expanded to include more people, to include or to lower, I guess, the threshold of who would otherwise be eligible for these assistance safety net programs. What this does essentially is, if you think of Obamacare was a double door, it opened, what this will do is it takes it back to a single door. This really is only impacting what Obama had put in, and we're going back to prior to that. So this undoes the double door, if you will, if that makes sense. So we're looking at the expanded services, not the traditional services. So we're going back to restrictions, who can be covered. A lot of this is in our immigration population, and which there's a lot in that space you guys have been following along on just our federal response to immigration issues. Here locally, so we have a mandate to, when persons come in and apply for these programs, we have a mandate to assess their eligibility to those programs and then serve them once they're deemed eligible. In Trinity County, about 23% of our population receives Medi-Cal benefits and about 15% on CalFresh. Those numbers for Medi-Cal is 4,538 individuals, and then in CalFresh it is 2,783, and that's of February 1st. If you're like me, I was surprised, and I thought this was going to be higher, if I'm telling you the truth. I was surprised at the trends in the last couple of years. We've seen a decline. I think one of the factors for that is that we have more employers that are offering medical insurance, which is great, and less reliance than on food. Formally through this system, I think that there are nonprofit entities that hold soup kitchens that supplement. The food bank is another supplemental for food. And we also have seen an increase in people farming and growing their own food. So impact to Medi-Cal here. One of the big changes that HR 1, which is prior to Obamacare, we used to do every 6 months, we would reassess an individual for their eligibility. With Obamacare, that changed to every 12 months. So now we're going back to 6 months. This is a heavy workload. We have had eligibility staff that even during COVID, we weren't renewing folks even annually. We've had a new workforce that is learning how to do this for the first time in the last 2 years. And now to take that new training, if you will, and then apply that every 6 months, it's a high turn. We have, so those that qualify, we're kind of estimating at this point with the reduction, we have a potential reduction, about 436 folks that might end up with a copay with Medi-Cal where they might not have had that before. And then one of the larger issues that HR 1 does is it requires a mandatory work requirement for non-disabled, non-elderly persons ages 19 to 64. It's 80 hours per month, and that could be employment, volunteer work, education program, or job training. And this is subject to impact 2,387 persons in Trinity County. One of the other major changes is often when you apply for Medi-Cal, there is a 90-day retroactive provision that will be changed to a 30-day. So that will impact, I mean, if we were looking at just this month alone, that would have impacted 22 recipients. And then those with an unsatisfactory immigration status, once, you know, there's a potential that if they don't have the proper documentation to provide to the department, there'd be about 74 persons in Trinity County that would have a vulnerability there. So looking at the, for CalFresh, again, we have those, the work requirements for Medi-Cal. We're gonna have work requirements for CalFresh or the food assistance program. So looking at that, it's called able-bodied adults without dependents. So ABOD is our, of course, language in the office. There's going to be a requirement to have employment verification. So this could impact just over 1,100 persons in Trinity County. With children, that would impact just under 450 persons in Trinity County. Those that have the unsatisfactory immigration status, there's just about 2. And this is just looking at February data. Of course, this changes week to week. And then one of the other things with CalFresh that we will not be looking at is there's a utility allowance that is going to be changed and altered as well with these new updates. So the timeline for these changes, some of them went into effect October 1st. Although with the governmental shutdown, that had its own pause and delay, if you recall, back in October, November into December. We have the Medi-Cal limits have already changed. That went into effect in January. By next January, more, they're just slated. So I do appreciate that we do have some runway with some of these changes as we're getting ready to train our staff and having a higher volume of, you know, contact with our beneficiaries here in town. But by October of 2028, we will see full program implementation by that point. And I know that sounds like a long time, but it is not in our world. So as to behavioral health and how this changes the services with mental health, and I'll just make a note, something that I have learned in the last year coming into behavioral health department, which has been an absolute joy. When we say the words behavioral health, that means all inclusive of mental health and substance abuse services. When you say mental health, it is specific to the clinical work itself of therapist or psychiatry. So behavioral health, they, for Medi-Cal, have a contract with the Department of Healthcare Services. That is our local or our state entity that oversees that program. We have separate contracts on the mental health side and to the substance abuse side. This will allow us to actually now contract, and these services will come together and be complementary, which you would think maybe that we already have done that, but we have not as a system. They have been 2 separate parallel systems. This will allow us to kind of operate under one contract so that persons that are served in one side of the house, if eligible, could be served in the other side a little bit more seamlessly. I think that is a benefit to our beneficiaries. So when we look at mental health, just on the clinical side, California, they look at percentages in a couple of ways. When we look at prevalence, they would tell us that over 1,000 persons in Trinity County should be or could be eligible to mental health services. And in the county, our shop, we serve the severely mentally ill only. Mild to moderate are referred out through partnership or other local providers. Our responsibility is those with severe mental illness only. And they are estimating, if you look at Medi-Cal's prevalence rate, because we know that poverty is a factor of mental health and substance use disorders, they would say based on anyone eligible in Trinity County, we would be serving over 1,000. We do not. And when we look at our caseload, and those that we serve, we served 470 persons in calendar year 2025. With substance use disorder, again, they would say prevalence rate, they would use a formula of 17%. On mental health side, they would say a prevalence rate of 25%. But if we looked at the whole of everyone who's eligible to Medi-Cal in Trinity County, they would say 771 individuals could be served. We have served 83 individual adults. Our programs also are focused on adults only in behavioral health, substance use, with prevention services to our youth, but formal services would be towards our adults.
Can I just ask a question here?
Absolutely.
So I think I'm interpreting this to say that our numbers, our actual numbers are lower than averages and the projections or estimates.
Our
Is that
numbers
what
are
you're saying?
lower than what they would say is the high, like, prevalence rate. But we're looking at actuals.
Right.
That would be if we did outreach and everyone who is eligible to Medi-Cal in Trinity County had it. But we also know our numbers are low at under 5,000. And we could make an argument that closer to 10,000 persons in Trinity County could be eligible to Medi-Cal. They're not, and what is hard with formulas is that many persons, if you're looking at income threshold only, let's just throw out the number, if 10,000 people based on median income could be eligible to Medi-Cal. Well, we don't have that many because people are employed and have other options, or maybe they're military and they have other options, or there's other. So when we look at these prevalent rates in mental health and SUD, they don't take that into consideration. They're just looking at total eligible.
Thank
So
you.
the math doesn't always math. Okay.
Thanks.
The mobile crisis response team that was newly added in California. We did launch in July of 2024. So we're a year and a half into this service. And so that first 6 months, we had served 10 individuals. This is in partnership with often our law enforcement, where we're responding to someone's home when there's a mental health crisis occurring in real time. So that was a kind of slow build up. This last calendar year in 2025, we served 32 individuals and their families. 100% of those persons had Medi-Cal. But it is not limited to that population. Mobile crisis it's much broader than that. So the impacts of HR 1 on our mental health and SUD, our substance use programs, is unknown, but it could be fairly dramatic. And I say that because if we have every 6 months in the Medi-Cal side redeterminations happening, and people then are coming off of Medi-Cal, then they don't have access to mental health for severe mental illness.
May I ask you a question?
Yeah.
In that particular scenario, what is the actual likelihood that if somebody is in this current condition, that they are not going to qualify? I mean,
That they may not.
yeah, that someone with this condition to the level of severe mental illness, it seems to me that there's a very strong likelihood that that person would remain in the program, because if they're struggling to that degree, how would they have an alternative option? I'm not sure.
So one hypothesis of that I know concerns our staff is that asking a person's with schizophrenia, for example, to come in and now redetermine every 6 months is a harder lift than once a year. Possible, yes, if they have a support system around them, or we have staff going and finding them and helping and assisting in that process. So that is more field time than common, but a commitment.
Yeah.
So that's where I see that barrier potentially happening.
It's unfortunate that there's not a tier for that, like in this population, you do not have to continually renew every 6 months for, reasons that are clear.
Yeah.
That's unfortunate. Well, thank you.
I do have one question.
Yes.
For the vulnerable population for the assistance programs for HR1. Is there a support for those people that are going to be losing those benefits, or you suspect that they will be, to help them bridge into working or bridge into employment, or is there something that you work on with?
Yes, excellent
outside?
question. So I will kind of take a mini detour. Traditionally, in our eligibility and public assistance programs, we have a responsibility that once someone is eligible to these programs and they're able-bodied to work, they are synced up with our Employment and Training Services Division, and we have 60 months to help them become self-sufficient. So, so what these changes will also do is we are going to have to bolster that division of the department as well, and create jobs, create volunteer, work, help with education. We have a very close relationship with Shasta College here locally, Smart Center. And so these are all parallel to this. We are bolstering our workforce there to accommodate potentially, 2,300 new people having to have 80 hours a month.
Right, thank
Yeah.
you.
Repeat that, accommodate how many people to have 80 hours a month?
If I go back earlier and we look at the impact on ABOD. Well, let's see, 1,100 in the CalFresh program, and then 2,387 in the Medi-Cal program.
Are those generally crossovers?
Yes,
So,
so the 2,300 is a pretty safe number, yeah.
yeah, okay, all right.
So our projected concerns and/or opportunities, depends on how we want to look at it. What we do know with HR1 is that we will have an increased workload for our public assistance staff. We have 14 allocations. We're generally pretty close to being filled in that. We pretty solid over the last year. I've had 12 employees in that. So an increased workload. I mean, they average caseloads of 400 to 600, and they're very busy. So we do know that there will be cuts to safety net services with HR1. It is unknown to the extreme of that. We can have kind of best guesses, but for people that come off of Medi-Cal, for example, that puts more pressure on CMSP and standing up for indigent care. So the county has a responsibility for indigent persons that don't qualify. So that's our general assistance program. That is a general fund program solely. We have seen, I would say in my history in the department, 3 to 8 people was an average caseload size for the indigent caseload. We have seen as many as up to 35 in that. With other people potentially coming off of Medi-Cal, we'll see that program grow even more. So we are strategically navigating how that looks. There could be increased healthcare turn, and by that, that's a term that we use. So say you come in for your 6-month redetermination, and you didn't have all your paperwork, or you didn't meet all the requirements, you're discontinued, and then you come in a month later and apply again, and then you're granted. That is called turn. We have a certain percentage that we're allowed for our compliance and quality assurance. So increased healthcare turn could be a concern. Funding reduction, of course, is a concern here. Although I would argue that there's an opportunity in this one, because we know that there is other individuals that are not on Medi-Cal that could be on Medi-Cal. There's additional administrative cost. HR1 is going to shift some of the what the Fed share is. That will shift to the state, and then the state, I'm pretty confident, will shift down to the counties. And then there's just a series of unknowns that we don't know, because we don't know California's budget right now. We won't know that concretely until June or even later. So we're holding space, But what we can do is we can train our staff and have them ready to go. We can monitor data. We can have data-driven advocacy, which I think is the most powerful. We can tell our story in numbers. The County Welfare Directors Association, CWDA, works very, very closely with CSAC, and they really lead the charge in our legislation lobbying. And we provide data to them on a weekly and monthly basis on how these impacts are going to impact not only our county, but all 58 counties. And they have a unified approach in their lobbying, which is, if you have followed any of CWDA's work, it is quite profound. So I look forward to seeing that. Of course, partnerships locally, we are going to have to find a way to create more jobs. We are going to have to, of course, that's what we want to see. We want to see people self-sufficient, feel pride in taking care of themselves and their families. We want to help them close the gap and get there. So we will need your assistance in those partnerships. And then, of course, our fiscal strategy. We're just going to be watching and waiting to see how we can maximize dollars that we do have and serve the people that we need to serve. So with that, let me give a little bit of data on federal poverty limit.
Pardon me, may I ask you a question
Yes.
regarding the comment of the partnerships?
Uh-huh.
I'm just curious how an organization may be able to contact you to take on volunteers or on specific projects. How will that be set up? Do you know yet? And if so, how might an organization say, I can take volunteers, 4 of them for, 10 hours this week or something like that?
Let me come back to you on that because I don't want to overpromise
Okay.
where I have some connections in that. But we, the county, would not become an employer with volunteers.
Correct.
But the partnership of what I would recommend, if there are any entities that have jobs that they are aware of, we do refer people to the Smart Center. And
Okay.
communicating with our local kind of job fair and our Smart Center is how we rely on connecting persons to
Okay.
work.
I think that might be a way that as supervisors, we could support, is making sure that organizations within our districts that, because these people are going to be all over the county. They're not just
Correct.
going to be here. So there's going to be people within each of our districts that may be looking to fulfill their volunteer hours or part-time job hours or what have you. So if you have organizations in your county that could use volunteers, make sure that they know that that's correct, right? They have
Correct.
to show volunteer hours or work
That's
hours?
that's one method, yes.
Yes, okay. Yeah, that might be a good way to help have those things in place so that when people come out and need them, we know where we can send them. Okay, thank you for answering that.
Yes, I want to talk a little bit of numbers on income. The median income using the 23-24 data, median income in Trinity County is between $53,000 and $54,000 annually. That is an increase in our community. We have this is quite a large spread, but we have between 7% and 20% of persons below poverty. Californians' median income is $95,000 to $100,000. So we are about half of that. But when we're looking at the federal poverty limit and we are looking at being 100% below, if you're looking at an individual, that is a person that has an income of around $15,600 a year. You're looking at a family of 4 being 100% below the federal poverty limit. A family of 4 is about $32,000 a year. For Medi-Cal, when we're looking at being 138% below the federal poverty limit, that is a family of 4, that's anything below $44,000 a year. So I know that there are persons that qualify. And of course, we want to support, choice. We want to support how people need, but I'm an advocate of if you need health insurance, I know that the impact of not having access to healthcare puts a strain on our systems in a different way. And I would rather persons that qualify for Medi-Cal get Medi-Cal than go without insurance and then kind of neglect their own well-being. But, you know, for those that are employed and have an alternate way, you know, I'm thankful for that opportunity too.
Liz, I want to inject an idea here, and you've probably already looked into this. I wonder how maybe we get the word out a bit better than maybe we are doing. But Shasta College has incredible programs for people who do want to step up in their own career paths. And I was amazed at, I received a sort of a private presentation on this from their individual that runs that sort of program. It was staggering to me what they will provide for people that want to do this, down to, I mean, childcare would be the obvious one. And I would think all the way kind of at the other end of the spectrum, even clothing for job interviews that need to happen, you know, tuition for hours of schooling, and the number of ideas that are out there. I think it can be a depressing thing to sit in your house and think, I want to change my life, and I don't even know where to begin. I don't even know what a good idea would be. People that will work with you on the gamut of things that are opportunities that are here and available and can really help people move up to a different space in their life. And I wonder about that too, as sort of our bridging thing and helping people just kind of have ideas and feel supported in that way.
Yeah, I completely agree with those points. And Shasta College continues to grow and just innovate in ways that they can support. And for a certain, you know, potentially group of persons, that would be a great option. Some of the times the people that we're serving are in deep poverty, and there are a lot of other barriers that our staff are there helping them overcome to get to what you're describing.
Mm.
And so we have to look at, you know, the stages of, you know, how a person becomes self-sufficient. There are times that even with children, they might not be able to even think about childcare because the struggle is so much deeper than that initially where we're meeting them.
Mhm.
And so I do agree in the spectrum of what we offer to all persons to be successful. Success defined for one will look different from another, and we want to meet them in the gap of where they're at.
Mhm. Mhm.
Do you have a question?
Just a comment. An interesting idea is sponsorship of people sponsoring people to go to school to help them in their journey. I know my sister works with a rehabilitation center. She owns it in Colorado for horses, and they do that. They sponsor children, they sponsor the horses, they sponsor, and it's amazing who you'll find to do that. I think that might be an avenue we could look at. It's still different than state sponsored.
Some of the most successful programs have sponsors.
Mhm.
Yeah. I think my takeaway from listening to all of you is I would agree that the more diverse the portfolio, the more successful we'll be.
I love the comment I heard at a large leadership conference in discussing these types of things. And it was from world international leaders and leaders within our own country. And one of the things that I remember forever and remind myself of it is healed people heal communities, and healed communities heal economies. And having our people healed and made well will do wonders for our communities as a whole. And then those healed communities can build economies, and we have the people who are well and capable of working within those economy systems. And so you are literally at the foundation of what this county needs in order to reach our greater goals of healed communities and healed economies. And I think that everyone on this board is hopeful that we can, as a collective, support your department in making sure that we move these types of programs forward to the best of our ability.
Thank you.
Further questions?
I just wanted to say that of all of the departments in our county, it seems to me, and even more so since you have incorporated behavioral health into the total program, that you folks get handed the biggest moving target of anybody. And the way that you continue to be so positive about that and pivot and innovate and train and just ask those next step questions. Never do I see you or those within your care, your coverage kind of bottom out and say, wow, the state's doing it again. It's always, okay, well, how are we going to strategize and tackle this? And that positivity is, I just don't want to sidestep that. I want to highlight it and say thank you for it. If that were to then come to us to solve, there'd be no way. We need your expertise and your skill. And so your attitude in approaching that is really commendable, appreciated.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Yeah, our team is quite amazing and they care deeply for this county at large and all of our communities and micro communities within. And it's a passionate group.
Mhm. Mhm.
Okay,
Are you complete in that
I'm
presentation?
complete with that one.
Okay.
One more thing.
Oh, Supervisor Leutwiler?
I just wanted to encourage that we make sure that as Drew continues to work on the economic development aspect of our general plan, that we connect these dots. Because obviously when we're looking at jobs and volunteer opportunities and all that kind of stuff, and that all has to do with economic development. And I also want to make sure that we think perhaps broader than we have or more deeply about remote work opportunities, because a lot of times I hear people and they focus on the brick and mortar and what's opening and closing and can we attract people and companies here. And I don't think we should limit ourselves to that. Yes, we should do that. And we should also look at opportunities. And one very specific example is the company that I am involved with. I've hired 20 people over the last few years while I've been sitting on this board. Not one of them has been in Trinity County. Not by design, but we were looking for certain people and we found them. But we just hired someone in Trinity County. And they were somebody that was unemployed. They're making more than they've ever made before. And they're doing it completely remote. And they're doing exactly what we need and we're thrilled to have them. How many more people are there here that already are qualified for those kinds of jobs? Or if we focus the right kind of training and development and so forth, and outbound marketing to people about the skills that we have here, how many more could we employ in that remote work option versus just trying to get people here that they can go to work for physically here? So just putting that out there. And I love that, well, I hate that you're having to go through this on behalf of all of our people, but I love, as Supervisor Cox said, the way that you're doing it. And then I love what Drew is doing on the economic development side. And if we can pull those two together, we may be able to paint a better path forward.
Encouraging.
Do you have something to say? No. Okay, all right. We will conclude that presentation. We will now move into the presentation from Health and Human Services, Behavioral Health Services. Receive an update from Health and Human Services Agency on Behavioral Health Services Act. No public comment is required on these?
Not on presentations.
Okay, thank you. That was, I wanted to just clarify. Thank you. Okay. Welcome back.
Thank you. No, it's actually nice to be able to showcase, the work that we're doing. It's quite a bit. It's also amazing that they all kind of complement each other as well across divisions within the department. So mental health services, MHSA, to behavioral health services, BHSA. Probably one of the things I'm thankful for in coming into behavioral health a year ago, March 1st, is that I didn't have to put a lot of energy into learning the old way because we're forced to all learn a new way. So if you have not, and those online and those future online, while this is open, if you have not taken our survey, the QR code will come up at the end. You might be able to answer the questions in the survey a little bit more intelligently if you wait to the end, but I want to provide an opportunity for those to participate in getting community feedback. This is a state-sponsored survey really asking what does our community know about mental health, and helping us set our priorities moving forward. So the goal today is to talk about MHSA, what it was and where we're moving to and what those changes look like. Whereas the last presentation was about federal change, this is state only. This is a California initiative and part of our governor's kind of mandate to change the mental health system. So the background, MHSA actually it's a Proposition 63. It was voted in 2004, which essentially places a 1% tax on millionaires that goes straight into mental health block grant. And those funds then fund the 58 county mental health in addition to other funding, but this 1% is a set aside. The list here is how, I'm going to call it the buckets of how the money is supposed to be spent, how we are audited, how we are measured in those funding components there. So now we fast forward in 20 years later, in 2024, the voters passed an updated proposition redirecting the 1% millionaire tax into the behavioral health block grant. And they decided to take our original buckets and shift them around. They're still all there, but the percentages of how much money is spent in one bucket to another has changed. Again, kind of to my earlier comment of how substance use was treated separate from mental health, this helps to align those programs. So this is a chart that it's a side-by-side of the changes from MHSA to BHSA. And I'll give you a moment to read through that. Probably the largest change in this funding source is there's a bigger pot of money going to housing initiatives. So mental health has never been in the housing space. This is the first time that they're really being drawn into housing. That is new, and that has been a statewide kind of overhaul in the way that mental health has not had to have these conversations. They've referred to other programs, and now they're having to do it in-house. The other is that there is a change in our administration, like percentage of funding that is, we used to have a 10% going to the counties, and now it's 5%. Guys, time to read through that list. Okay. So we will continue to receive 90% of the total funding. This is the new shift of those buckets of where they're earmarking 30% for housing, 35% for full service partnership. So those are persons with the most complex needs of the severely mentally ill population. 35% for services and supports. So that is significantly changed. All of these are significant change. I'm not worried about it in the sense that the same total allocation is still there, but what percentage goes where, I think that is just strategic planning on our part, because persons that we serve all have a need in each of these buckets. So it's just making sure that we're addressing those completely and wholly for their benefit. So here's a side-by-side financially of those buckets. It's a little easier to read it on this one.
And Liz, the county, the current allocation is a mandated allocation, or this is a practical application? This is where we needed to use the money based on the needs we identified.
I would say politely, this is the state's way of telling us where we need to spend money. How that looks locally is probably different,
Okay.
but we will make it work.
So both ways are then
Both.
telling us what they think is right.
Correct.
And neither way left it totally in our hands to say, oh, well, this is what this person really needs.
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay. So within the new BHSA, what we're required to do here locally is to develop a 3-year integrated plan that states what we will do locally to adhere to these new rules and new funding rules. So we are in the throes of that. We are working on our draft plan. I'll get to our timeline next. But so we are working on our integrated plan. We'll have annual reporting to that plan. And then it does require a heightened level of community engagement, well beyond what the former system required. And so this is a good thing. I think we need the community voice. I will say, though, in the last year that I have been a part of behavioral health, there's a lot that I have learned about the system that in the 20 years that I've been with the county that I was unaware of. And I think that first we need to increase our just education of what behavioral health, the scope of work is, what it is not, who we serve, who we do not serve, and why, and how we support people accessing, what they offer at behavioral health. So I think education is going to be a big part of this community engagement, and then engaging on coming up with community priorities together.
Do you think in that there are members of our population who qualify and need and could really benefit from this that just don't know about it? Is that kind of what you're
I believe so.
indicating?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. So the elements of our integrated plan, there are there's 7 elements with 11 initiatives that we are speaking to. So this list, you can read at a future time. We are writing our plan, addressing each of these items in several hundred pages. It is very comprehensive and quite impressive.
Let me ask a question.
Yes, please.
Once you get to a place where you feel like you can really launch this new information, is there any chance, because a lot of times in the outlying areas, those are the people that don't know about a lot of the programs that are even available, to do a community kind of tour and go to like my district and Supervisor Brownfield and give us a chance to pull people together so that folks really know what there is available? Because I find in my district that people don't know and they don't think there is anything, and so they just stay in their current condition without having any knowledge or even any desire to think anyone's going to help them. So it might be something that we could facilitate as within our districts to really make sure that people know how things have changed and what is changing and what's available and what is new and what's available.
I would welcome an invitation at any point to town hall meetings that I know many of you host. Myself and staff would love to go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good to know. Thank you.
That's a great point. Okay. So our survey, it's 16 questions, 10 kind of really meaty questions. 6 of them are more about demographics. But these are the list of statewide goals for the behavioral health plans, and they are asking, counties of their list of goals to be addressed, rate them high, medium, and low. So this is part of the survey. Thank you to those of you who've taken the survey and those who in the future, in the next today, will take it. So looking at our preliminary, we have 90 persons that responded. I want to give a shout out to Yanni, who, along with another staff member, went to our high school and had a booth and engaged our students in actually letting their voice be heard in issues that were a priority to our youth. And I would say that that was probably our largest percentage of this survey, actually. But those in the highest priority, just suicide prevention, education, understanding what that looks like across Trinity County, overdose, untreated or underdiagnosed behavioral health conditions. This is specific to schizophrenia and other severe conditions, those being underdiagnosed or undertreated, and then prevention services within child welfare. So those were kind of our competing high priority at the point of the survey that we've collected. This is kind of preliminary. And then of medium priority is our hospitalizations, the chronically homeless, and legal involvement. Those are our justice involved population. And then you see that those also are similar to medium and low priority, are kind of similar there. Curious if this surprises you or if you feel like this is consistent with what you have heard in your communities.
I just am so deeply saddened at suicide rates in our nation and in our, it's just such a theft of life. And it's very, very sad. It's very sad that, especially if that some of this data came from our high school students, that that's something that's in their mind that they feel like is a problem, That's sad. But it's real.
But it's real, and it impacts many people. The ripple effect of suicide is very profound, and the loneliness that it really, and the hopelessness that it speaks to is very profound. Between 2016 and 2024, Trinity County did have 44 reported deaths by suicide.
What were the dates on that again?
2016 to 2024. So this is per capita.
44.
Per capita, I guess when you look, we're 71% to the state average of 37%. It's very high. And I would say is a call on all of us to do better. Any act of kindness or just inspiring hope in someone, a smile goes so much further than you would think. And asking if you are okay. This really is an impact to our elderly population. And just so I was not surprised to see this as the #1 priority so far of surveys received. I think that there's a opportunity for partnership with both mental health and public health to address this issue the best we can in our community.
Liz, I want to pause there for 1 second and just very generally share that there is one situation that I'm aware of where that individual that committed suicide, the people in that individual's world collectively said, we had no idea. And they, of course, blamed themselves and what should I have looked for? What should I have seen? What things were said or indicated? And they could come up with nothing. And so this is just a rhetorical question, how to address that. Because there doesn't appear to be something to sort of sink your teeth into and say, well, this we can fix. If you can't see the problem, you can't fix it. And I wonder if there are thoughts around that.
So my initial thoughts to that, because we debrief this quite often as a staff, is our focus is best served in the education and prevention. I can't necessarily intervene with someone who has maybe already made a choice or is contemplating very serious a choice. My heart would be to help and intervene, but prevention and education, letting people know, one, to have a conversation about it is okay. Talking about suicide doesn't make it more pervasive. It doesn't mean you talk about it and it's going to happen. It I think we need to normalize the conversation of how to support people, what support looks like, what that looks like in your family, what check-ins look like um, in your immediate world around you. I think having information, we have vulnerable population groups. We have youth that are vulnerable. We have elders that are vulnerable, and then all in between. Social connections are huge. So I think my heart would be to help infuse in the prevention and the education.
Thank you.
And I think families have a big role in knowing what their family members are doing. Are they on the phone all the time? Are they in their room all the time? Are you do not get together as a unit? Yeah, and what is the most vulnerable population right now of suicides?
Persons over 65
Okay,
and our youth.
great, okay.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
And I would just add, I think, there are a lot of services and such out there, but I think that the more that people can reach out and engage with those services, Supervisor Cox and I sit on the PSA2, which is about Area Agency for Aging, and certainly there's a lot of services that they make available, but you have to connect those services to the individuals. And those agencies really only work when the people in the community step up and participate. Will you go visit someone who is elderly and alone?
Yeah.
Will you make those connections? Will you participate in youth activities? Because I think the biggest thing I've seen over time, and I've lost friends to this, is if we rely on the people that are formally in that individual's life, they may not have the tools to address it. And the more that we can, like you said, connect, but really connect at a deeper level, it's like, oh, hey, how you doing? But actually watch the body language and hear the tone and dig a little deeper and ask a few more questions and help. Because if we just say, well, the families, they're the ones who should do this, and they should, but they're not necessarily going to be the ones who are capable. And so the more of us that can learn more about how to deal with it, how to support it, and then engage ourselves to support these agencies and organizations, I think that's key. This personal perspective.
Please continue.
Okay. So the timeline for Behavioral Health Services Act going live, we received our direction from the state in 2025. We have a presentation tomorrow with our Mental Health Advisory Board. We will be submitting our draft integrated plan by the end of March. Hopefully, in short order, we'll receive their comments and their feedback, which will then open up for a 30-day public comment and review. We will bring back to you our presentation for adoption of that plan in May, and then with a go live July 1 with the new fiscal year.
Very good.
So the key changes, just at a glance, we are broadening the scope and aligning the work of both substance use disorder and mental health services. We're reorganizing our funding. We are putting in a plan, and we are focused on our outcomes. Oh, there you go.
Thank you.
Take your survey. I won't make you raise your hands, but I know you're already thinking about it in your head. No. All right, and with that, I am happy to take any additional questions.
Well, thank you very much for that presentation. I hope each one of us works hard to bring this new information to your districts and doesn't ever cease to engage, telling people I see you and I care about you and you matter to me when you have an opportunity to do so. Do you have any questions or requests of us at this time?
Not at this time, but I will.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, we will
Okay.
answer the call.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for all the detail in the backup material. It's great to be able to have a chance to look that over beforehand.
At this time, we will now move into our closed session items. Prior to moving into closed session, I will read the report out from last closed session. On 2/3/26, when we had in closed session, Government Code Section 54954.5, real property negotiations, the property APN 024260007-000, the agency negotiators were Trent Tuthill, Margaret Long, Liz Hamilton, and Jesse Ferguson. The negotiating parties were Dana Ryan, and under negotiation price and terms of payment. Direction was given to staff on that matter. F2 was heard at Government Code Section 54954.5C, conference with legal counsel, existing litigations, number of cases 1, case number 23CV014. On that matter, direction was given to staff. Item F3, Government Code Section 54954.5F, labor negotiations. County designated representatives were Lila Cassis, Margaret Long, and Susie Hawkins. Employee organizations for the Skills Trade Unit and the Professional Peace Officer Association, and direction was given for negotiations. On 2/10/26, Government Code Section 54954.5E, Public Employee Appointment, County Administrative Officer. Discussions were held and item was continued to 2/17/2026. We will now take public comment on our closed session agenda item. Is there any public comment in the room? Seeing none, do we have any online?
Dan Trujillo.
Good morning, Chair, Supervisor, staff, Dan Trujillo, Weaverville. I want to just take a moment to thank Director Hamilton for that presentation and the board's engagement on that. There's a lot of great work going on here in Trinity County that we can all be proud of. I want to briefly speak on item E2, Government Code Section 54954.5E, the Public Employee Appointment, the County Administrative Officer. To point out that the board continues to make public statements regarding transparency while simultaneously continuing to move the most meaningful parts of this process forward in closed session. That alone raises significant democratic concerns, and you couple that with the fact that the board is not even citing the law that allows it to do so. The agenda item continues to list Government Code Section 54954.5E, but that section, as has been pointed out, does not authorize a closed session. It only explains how that agenda item should be labeled. The law that actually allows a closed session for hiring a public employee is Government Code Section 54957. If that statute is not also invoked, then the legal basis for excluding the public has not been properly established. Beyond the legal concern, there's a deeper democratic one. You all were elected to exercise political judgment in the public, to debate values, priorities, and trade-offs in front of the people who put you here. When decisions about the role, authority, and governing principles of the CAO are made behind closed doors, that relationship gets flipped. The public loses its voice in shaping how its own government will operate. And that's how trust will continue to break down around this process. The fix is quite straightforward and responsible. First, please ensure that the closed session authority is properly grounded in the Brown Act by expressly invoking the correct statutory basis for the personnel exception. 2, comply with the reporting requirements, Section 54957.1, following any closed session action, ensuring that the public is informed of the outcome of each session, which I would like to thank the chair for doing that today and continue to do that. 3, provide legitimate opportunities for public input on the recruitment criteria, job description, compensation parameters, and selection process in open session before key decisions are made. That would help restore both legal clarity and democratic legitimacy. Thank you for your service, and thank you again for your attention.
Further public comment online?
I have no additional raised hands.
Thank you. We will now close public comment on closed session agenda items. In our closed session, we will observe item E1, Government Code Section 54954.5C, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, number of cases 1. We will also review item E2, Government Code Section 54954.5E, Public Employee Appointment, County Administrative Officer. We will also observe item E3, Government Code Section 54954.5F, Labor Negotiations. County's designated representatives will be Lila Cassis, Margaret Long, and Susie Hawkins, and the employee organization will be our Skills trades unions. We will now adjourn the open meeting of the Trinity County Board of Supervisors and enter into our closed session.